So welcome to this edition of Listen, Learn, Explore, Food for Thought. And what a great topic. I think food is something near and dear to all of our hearts. And I'm so excited to have Toni Fisk here talking with us. I loved her podcast and can't wait to hear more. Tell you a little bit about, I'll let Toni tell you about herself, but I'll tell you how here comes Tiffany back. I'll tell you how we got to meet Toni. It was through her book, which is To Dine with Dignity. And I had the opportunity to take a look at the book first. And I have had experiences, obviously, as a clinician, working with individuals living with dementia. Also, my mother lived with dementia prior to her death, as did my mother-in-law. So saw things from a family perspective as well, and loved how easy the read was, because I don't know about the rest of you, but time is a precious commodity. So being able to find a resource that you could delve into and get something out of quickly really was helpful, I think, and something that's valuable for all of us. So Toni, why don't we start a little bit, if you want to share a little bit about yourself, but also tell us what inspired you to write this book for us.
All right. Thank you, Joan. And I'm very happy to be here and share information with everyone. The book comes from my experiences working in the dining communities and senior living communities. My history, my career has been in food service, dining services, whether it's in hospitals or senior living, and that could be independent living, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, and hospice. So having spent so many years in this venue, as I say, I got to see what happens behind the curtain. And I saw what was happening, not only with the dining staff who interacted with the residents, but also the nursing staff, the activities group, just everyone that comes into contact with the residents, whether they are fully functioning, partially functioning, or are living with dementia. And I saw that there was a need really to up the game on the care, and not only just how you're interacting, but particularly in the feeding and ensuring that they were consuming enough food, that each meal experience was indeed an experience where we can get as much protein and nutrition in them, allow them to hydrate as much as possible, because as you know, if you're not hydrating, that just leads to a whole nother long list of issues that can go from delirium to UTIs to just devastating if our people aren't getting enough hydration. So I decided that I wanted to branch out, and I put together actually a commercial manual on a dining program focusing on dementia. And at that point, I said, I need to go and get the word out for the everyday person, the everyday caregiver and care partner. And that I took my manual and I really condensed it and turned it into the book, the hashtag Dine with Dignity. And I felt like the components of it met the needs for the everyday person. So it is certainly low tech, but it speaks to high touch. And that's the way that I wanted it to be. I didn't want it to be some gobbledygook, high technical manual that nobody understands and they fall asleep after the first couple pages. It's because it's not interesting. It's not helping. It's not answering their questions. They really have real questions, and I want to be able to answer the real questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love the fact that and I think this is important for us, in community settings, that, we're looking at not only the professional caregiver, we're looking at the family caregiver. Mm-hmm. I think if there's one thing that we have learned through COVID, it is the value of the family to our team. Obviously, how important they are to the individual resident, but how important they are for us as care providers, that they are partners with us. And we can all do so much more when we're all part of it, but that means we all have to have the same knowledge and understanding and a similar approach. And Toni, one of the things I love, and you can speak to this a little bit, I hope, is as obviously your background is dining, you're a certified dietary manager, and we know how important that role is in our communities and how much difference the CDMs can make. within our organizations. But you also took the time to get yourself certified through the positive approach to care with Tifa Snow and as a certified dementia practitioner. So you not only took your expertise in dining, but you have done a lot to make sure that you got a broader depth of knowledge relative to how to help support that individual living with dementia. So can you share a little bit about kind of that part of your story?
Sure.
What do we need to do to make that part of our story?
Well, I figured I already had half of the equation down. Now I needed to really ramp up the second half of the expertise in order to really be a subject matter expert to talk about this. I did take the certified dementia practitioner education and also the certified Montessori dementia care professional. I took both of those sessions. And the reason why I took both is I wanted to see what was the difference. Fortunately, it was really not super expensive. I mean, there was a cost to it, but you have to get yourself educated before you can speak to anybody about it. So I took the two different certifications to see how different they were. And they had the same content, but they did have a different perspective about providing the care. So the Montessori is obviously all about treating people as individuals, to humanize things, give them the opportunity to grow and develop and work as long as they possibly can through their own capabilities, as opposed to really more of a technical sort of approach to it. But they were both good. It was worth it. I'm glad that I did it. And then that led me to Tifa Snow and her positive approach to care, which is the best, because that really humanizes everything. So Tifa's philosophy is about working with our people living with dementia and engaging them and having them do as much as they can and working with them as opposed to doing things for them, and also understanding the different stages of dementia and what they go through as they do go from stage to stage and understanding their capabilities. So we always look to what they can do versus what they can't do. It's too easy to go to the negative. So let's focus on the positive and take advantage of those moments when the person shines and their personalities come out and their old selves come out and they're able to interact, and just cherish those times and learn to really how we can physically do things to make the experiences more positive for them, and also to reduce the opportunities for things to go awry. So when you're talking with someone with dementia, then you don't want to be face to face. You want to be to the side. So they have like this range of, they have an escape route and you're not blocking them. So if you're like right up in their face, that can be rather intimidating. So step back and appreciate whatever their personal and their private space and the public space is as you greet them. So it's just a wonderful, Tifa Snow and her approach is fantastic. I actually just recertified a couple of weeks ago. And so they keep us on our toes. We understand we're learning techniques. There's a lot of continuing education, a lot of free education. I encourage anyone to go on tifasnow.com and watch the videos. She's got a lot of workshops for either professional caregivers or family members. It's awesome. Wow. I love Tifa.
Well, it's so based on your work with Tifa, with the positive approach and and the need to assure that residents do get the appropriate nourishment, because it's always a challenge for us. And Kim, I have so much respect as a registered dietitian. You have a very challenging role within the long-term care setting. And we absolutely, and I can tell you as a nurse, and maybe sometimes as an activity professional, sometimes I got a little frustrated by the clinical piece of it, because the challenge to eating is absolutely, there's nutritional components that we have got to meet, but eating is a social event. And there's so much more to dining than just consuming food. And certainly as we work with individuals living with dementia, if we turn it into a task, we're likely to lose. Everybody's going to lose. So, Toni, can you have a couple of your favorite maybe tips and tricks that you have found that just have worked to make dining enjoyable and successful for people who are challenged as they're living with dementia?
Well, there's just so many opportunities. So let's talk about in a community. Okay, so we'll do a community tip, and then we'll do an at-home tip. So in a community, whether they're in an assisted living or memory care or skilled, what is important is that there aren't all these different distractions that are going to prevent the person living with dementia to lose focus on the task of eating. Okay, so if you're eating lunch and you're prompted, whatever the situation is, and you're able to eat your meal, but there is a lot of distractions going on. And that could be, so in a community, in the dining room, there are people talking, people chit-chatting, laughing out loud, heaven forbid they're on the phone or whatnot. But there's the carts that come in and out of the dining room. And then they have, when they open up the doors of the carts, because they're old and they're usually metal, but the doors will bang. And if you have dementia and you already have limited vision and you're focused on what you're focused on, and then you hear this loud bang, then you're going to jump. Anybody would. Anybody slams the door, you're going to jump. But at that point in time, the heart rate goes up, the amygdala goes wild, they're frightened. And do you think they're going to turn around and start eating again? No, I think not. I think their nerves are going to be like shot and they have to come down. At that point, they could be very upset. And then what is happening around them that's going to help to bring them down and calm them down? Chances are there's not anyone there that's going to help to calm them down and get them started again to finish the meal or to drink or whatever the case may be. So noise is it's a big problem in the dining rooms. If they're moving things around, like if you're pulling a chair out for someone or pushing someone in, they're seated in the chair and you're pushing them in, and it makes that grating sound on the floor. That's another thing. As one sense diminishes, your vision, then your hearing gets better, perhaps, if you don't have hearing issues, and that you're just going to be hypersensitive to these things, and it just will take them right off their game, and they won't be able to get back to eating and finishing the meal. As far as when you're in the home, it kind of on the same topic of noise. So if you're having a mealtime and you've got kids in the house and you sit down for dinner, and really, how often do we really sit down at the table anymore as a family, particularly for all three meals? But if we're sitting down wherever we're eating and there are children running about, then that's a distraction. And naturally, they're going to look to see what the kids are doing, or they're going to see what that movement is. If you've got dogs that every time a car drives by, they start barking like crazy, that's another distraction. So during mealtime, it really needs to be in as quiet and reserved and a peaceful area as possible for, a solid 30 minutes, probably 45 minutes to get through the meal, and so that they can consume the food at a pace that is appropriate for them. Now, as you get older and you have other health issues, then perhaps your chewing becomes a challenge. Maybe you have dysphagia in some form. Your aspiration is potential for aspiration. So that's just another reason that not only is the food properly prepared and it's minced or ground or pureed or whatever the case may be, but they have the time to take to eat it. So if we eat something, we're just eating and swallowing and going and drinking and talking and doing all this other stuff. But, this person with dementia who has some chewing or swallowing challenges, they are very deliberate when they're eating, and we can't go at that breakneck pace. So that has to be something in the caregiver's mind is they don't eat like you do. They don't drink like you do. They need to take their time and pace themselves. And if that's the case, if they're very slow eaters, then you really need to go into more mini meals. So 45 minutes is a long time, okay, in a busy household, everything that's going on. But maybe you can break that into 30-minute meals where they're kind of noshing, but they're eating high protein. They're eating things that have have a high liquid content to it. You know, a lot of fruits. The watermelon has a lot of water in it. You know, if you want to give them a smoothie, try to make sure it's a high protein smoothie with, you know, the Greek yogurts and using a lot of fresh fruits and things like that. You know, keep track of the sugar content also, but still do the mini meals so that they're able to consume food and liquids throughout the day.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, Toni, as you talk, you know, we sometimes focus on, you know, the quality of the food. And I'm not saying we should not be focusing on the quality of the food or what the food is, but we forget that there is so much more to looking at the dining experience and the consumption than just what the food is, but what the environment is and what the relationships are. And it takes us to, you know, one of my favorite Pioneer Network values, which is know the person. Because, you know, just as you described the challenges that someone living with dementia may face as they're eating, that doesn't mean that every individual living with dementia faces those same challenges. So it's knowing that person, knowing what is going to make this successful for them. I have to tell you, Toni, I would love to see somebody. This would be an interesting challenge if my husband, heaven forbid, ever ended up in a position where he needed this kind of care. He is the pickiest eater I know. And I don't know how you'd ever figure out, you know, that Greek yogurt smoothie isn't going to cut it because he doesn't, you know, heaven forbid, there's something in that he doesn't like. And if it's green, it definitely is not consumable. So, you know, it is a challenge to, you know, meet people where they are and find creative ways to meet those nutritional needs.
Right. Agreed. And I touched on that in the book with some different ideas about how to infuse like fruits into water. Is like plain water may be boring, and to some extent, yes, it is very boring, but you can puree some fruit and put that puree inside the water. So now it's flavored. And it doesn't turn into a juice. So juice has a lot of sugar, and it doesn't turn into one of these drinks where you're adding the you know, the Splenda flavored whatever Kool-Aid drink, whatever it is. And there's just a lot of different ways to do natural things. And as far as those types of snacks, is I found that you can drop a lot of good things inside of a smoothie and a milkshake that people just aren't even aware of what they're drinking. I was really took a juicer on a test drive here for about, well, we're still using it, but the things that I put inside, beets, like, you know, you either like beets or you don't like beets, but I took the canned beets that were just pure beets, read the labels, and I used the juice and I used the beets and I threw them right into a blender, and it didn't overwhelm the flavor of the other fruits and vegetables in there. So we had the fruit drink. And then at that point, we added Greek yogurt to it. So I might add some honey to give a little bit of sweetness. I might put in some vanilla just to give it another little bit of flavor. Anything I use the yogurt for, because this was the plain Greek yogurt, the 000 yogurt. I put vanilla in there because that stuff can be pretty gnarly. But if you just add like that little bit of flavoring, but it takes that edge off and you drink it. And those things, you can freeze them. So then they turn into almost like ice pops or a frozen yogurt, and then they can eat them out of a cup. And it's a great idea. And they're getting everything that they need, but they don't really know what they're getting, right? They don't know that good stuff that they're getting. I did a lot of experimenting with the sandwich maker, and discovered that, well, I think I mentioned it in the podcast, the cheaper the bread, the better, because the potato bread or the nicer breads, they're too gummy. But for those people that like to walk, they can take that snack and they can walk around the house with it. And if they put it down, it's okay. They pick it up, they just keep going with it. At least they're eating. And you can't force them to sit down, but if they're going to walk around, at least give them something. that's got some cheese in it. It's got some vegetables in it. It's got whatever protein you want to put in there. And it's just something really cute to nibble on. And everybody can gauge in prepping that food together, because you shouldn't be afraid to really give somebody with dementia a knife. Theoretically, okay, if they're capable of doing it in that moment and you're watching, I mean, you're not going to give them a whole, give them a watermelon to cut up, but you're going to give them something simple. And you can get a vegetable knife because it doesn't really have a blade on it, but you can give them a vegetable knife to cut up a carrot and then to put that inside of a blender. You can do those things. It's not all one or the other. There is a mix. There's a middle line that if we take the time and really think about it, you can do a lot of different things, a lot of things.
I love what you just shared there. I mean, that's such an important piece that, another one of my favorite values, they're all my favorite values, but another one is risk taking is a normal part of life. You and I can be just as dangerous with a knife cutting something as the next guy. So, I've had my issues. And so I think sometimes we are so risk aversive that we don't think about, again, part of the dining experience for some people is the preparation. And so if I want you to be part of it, then making something, being able to, whether it's as simple as setting the table or it's chopping food. But I don't know, Toni, if you've ever seen, or our listeners, that we have a wonderful award that we have done through Pioneer Network called A Heart to Serve. And it's all about meaning and purpose and finding connection with the greater community. And it was all started by an organization out in California called Rockport Healthcare Services, that their residents wanted to do something meaningful. And someone suggested that they cook for the homeless and prepare meals for homeless shelters. And so they took it on, and they've been doing it, obviously a little bit of a hiatus thanks to COVID and stay out of the community, but they did it. And I love watching their videos. If you have a chance, you go to Google A Heart to Serve, Rockport Healthcare Services, and you'll find some wonderful videos. And I love the videos where you see there's a resident with a right-sided deficit and another resident with a left-sided deficit. One of them is cranking the grinder and the other is feeding the food into it. I mean, it is a wonderful, it's just a wonderful reminder to us to look for, as you mentioned earlier, Toni, people's abilities.
Right.
And we get so focused on what people can't do that we forget to really capitalize on what people can do. And if I was having that much fun cooking the food, I'm for one thing, now don't tell the infection control folks this, but I'm probably munching a little bit while I'm cooking it. Yeah. Although I think they watch that very careful. But but there's ways to make it fun and
exactly, Joan. Exactly. And you can't be afraid. You have to test the water and just think, I think in the morning time, our folks probably have a higher energy level, higher ability to focus. They've had a full night's sleep, hopefully. They've had a decent breakfast, hopefully. So they've got the fuel and the energy to go. And then as the day goes on, then they get tired, of course. And maybe by dinner time, you don't want to task mom here, mom, chop up these carrots, but you do your prep work in the morning. I mean, that's what we do when we're cooking food in the community. We prep in the morning or the day before for that night. So when they're feeling good and they're energized and they're focused, well, that's a good time to do something that's a complex task, monitored, obviously, as opposed to waiting till the end of the day when your nerves are shot too. And then now you've got to work and worry about that. And you've got the dog running around and the kid, and here comes your partner making you, can you get away? I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to juggle all these balls. So you're no different. I mean, you go to 10 in a minute also. Well, someone with dementia can do the same thing. So we're really not that different per se in our emotions, and our fuses can be short, but let us be cognizant of the time of the day and the tasks that we're asking them to do, and be smart about it. And, once again, focus on what they can do, maximize on their potential, be aware of how the day's going. We all have lousy days. So maybe they had a rough night, they didn't sleep so good. So maybe that's not a good day to have all the blenders going and have all this engagement. Maybe, Mom, can you just set the table? Can you help fold these towels or something like that? Take all of your, I don't know about you, but I've probably got about 20 kitchen towels. I don't know. They multiply. I don't know what happens, but that's a simple task, and it's engaging, and it's something to do as opposed to being more complicated. So keep it as low tech as you can, and probably not the day to be running all of these loud machines in the kitchen.
Well, the other thing I thought of as you were speaking, Toni, is, we tend to, when we talk about activities and life enrichment, we always talk about the fact that it is something that belongs to the entire community. It's not something that is owned by the activity director, and he or she is responsible for engagement and enrichment. And I think the same thing could be said for dining. Dining is not owned exclusively by the people who work in dining services. It is everyone's responsibility, and everyone has the ability to create a dining experience, to create successes for that individual living with dementia that you're trying to support in their nutritional needs. And we got to do this together. That the Heart to Serve, I will tell you, they had every discipline out there. Obviously, they had to have the clinical folks looking at the infection control issues. They had to have occupational therapy, coming up with the right utensils for people. They had physical therapy, helping people maneuver. They had the social work, helping connect with the homeless shelters for them. So, and obviously activities very involved in it, and dining very involved in coming up with the recipe, helping with the recipes. And we do so much better when we do it together.
Right. One thing, and actually I'm going to talk about today is, and I'm glad you mentioned activities. And, I want to talk about the table setting on the dining room tables, and that everyone deserves to have a nice, clean, crisp table to sit down to. And one of the important components, which engages conversation, is the centerpiece. So you may have, sometimes you've got that poor, sad vase with that plastic plant that is just, with each month it just deteriorates. But I was thinking, this is a great activity, collaborating with Recreation Activities Group for dining and the residents, is to every month have a centerpiece that they focus on. It's one of their projects, but you turn it into an event. So they're working on the artwork to do the flower pot. Okay. So everyone paints the flower pot and then they sign it. But you would take pictures of the residents doing. Now we're gonna have storyline going, how they put it together. Take pictures of the residents holding up their flower pots. And then when you put them at the tables, is that it's something to talk about. But then what's important then is that you're rotating the centerpieces to different tables. They are likely sitting at the same table every day. We don't have assigned seating, but everybody goes to the same table, right? They go to the same chair. And heaven forbid you should try to, deviate from that. So you know what? We can't move the residents, but we can move those centerpieces. And then every couple of days you move them. So here's another thing to talk about, another thing for them to see and to brag about and to identify with, and just engage in some type of a simple conversation. And at the end of the month, maybe you do a vote. Who had the coolest looking flower pot? And then, talk about pride and independence, and you're feeling good, and you take a picture and you put a poster at the entrance, you put it in the newsletter. However we can do it, helps with the marketing. It's the engagement of the seniors. It's a social event. It's a marketing event. It's just fun. And we get the centerpieces on the table to help them look nice and fresh instead of the same old tired thing. And along with that goes with the discipline of the team in the dining team to make sure that the rest of the tabletop looks crisp. It looks like a restaurant. I don't care if it's a memory care, a skilled nursing, or independent living. Everybody deserves full salt and pepper shakers, They deserve a centerpiece. The sugar caddy should be stocked. However, 10 sugars, 3 equal, 5 Splenda, 2 sweet and low, and whatever the case may be, they should all be set up. It doesn't matter what the level of skill is. That is just running a professional business. And that's what dining is.
And I think it's valuing people. I think, Toni, you and I talked about this. I think it was on a side conversation at some point. I had an experience one time. I was at a CCRC that I was working with, and it was coming around Halloween time. And they had put together for the independent living residents just a beautiful presentation of a little miniature pumpkin that they had, whatever they are, gourd, and they had hollowed it out, and they had put a pumpkin puree kind of in it, and decorated it with the lid and a little cinnamon stick. And I mean, it was just really, really cute. And when I asked them about it, they were serving those to independent living, and they were serving them to assisted living, but they weren't going to do them for skilled, and how sad, we all want those special experiences. We can all appreciate and enjoy those. And yet we have this, I don't know, habit or whatever within our organizations that it doesn't, oftentimes just a mindset that the fancy stuff is to sell to the customer who is more alert, the resident who's more alert and is going to respond on their survey or whatever it is. And I know that's probably overly simplistic, but for the person living in skilled, well, it's good enough to put that pumpkin puree just in a bowl for them. Well, why? Why is that good enough?
It's a stigma, and it's just, oh, well, they'll eat the cinnamon stick, or they'll eat the pumpkin. Really? Do you really? No, come on. And P.S., aren't there people inside the dining room just in case you have that one person, for whatever delusional reason they may do it? I mean, that's why we have a function. When the staff brings the residents to the dining room, they're not dropping them off. They're still there, supposed to be caring for them. They should be watching what they're doing and paying attention, just like if they were in PT. Don't you watch the resident closely the entire time they're going through with their exercise, or you're walking them down the hallway? Well, you should be paying attention to them while they're eating in the dining room. Yeah. It's still, it's an event. It's a function. You should be watching. This is our jobs. This is what we get paid to do. You don't get an extra break just because it's mealtime and you're dropping them off at the sitters. That's not the case. I mean, we get paid to work 8-9 hours, whatever the case may be, then you're there to work the entire time. But I just think that is, and Joan, I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think our people in skilled deserve really a better meal than they do. And because they need it more. Yeah. They need that nutrients more. And particularly if you're on a puree diet, and if you're on the minced and moist with the ITSE coming down the pike, people have to be paying attention with that. They need our attention more. They need our care more than anybody else, because they're depending on us.
And I think they depend on us to bring them those simple pleasures. That individual and independent living or assisted living is more likely to be able to go out and have that experience. But that individual living in skilled all too often is not taken to a restaurant or taken someplace where they can have, because look at the rest of us. I mean, it's you eat your meals at home. How many of us through this pandemic wouldn't you just love to just go back out to a restaurant and just be served a really nice meal just for the ambiance of it? Just, well, why would we think that that's not something that individuals living in our skilled communities also yearn for? That's, that they miss. Is that opportunity for that just special meal where you feel catered to and,
Exactly. And I think that brings to me, when you think about it's changing the environment that you're in, sort of changes your perspective of everything that's going on that day. But when we are in the dining room and the residents, they come in a wheelchair, they should be moved to a regular chair during mealtime, because it's just the right thing to do. But if they can move, if you're able to move them, and I can't remember the term, ambulate them to another chair, then that's
move
what
them into another chair is more human.
Yeah, just move them into another chair. Then that's appropriate, because you know what? You just can't sit in that wheelchair all day long either. That's not good for you. It can't feel good. It can't be good for your back and your legs and the circulation. But once again, you're changing the game when you're in a chair, a hard chair with arms, and you're able to pull and sit up to the table instead of sitting in that wheelchair. It just really, what can we do to break it up? What can we do to break the day up just to make those things that much better? And I've seen it at all sorts of different levels where they do these types of things.
Toni, it made me think in one of my favorite How to Serve videos, there's a quote that is both, it almost hurts my heart every time I hear it. And it's a resident who she's talking about the joy that she's had being a part of this. And her comment is, it made me feel human. And that comment just kind of tears at my heart, because to think that residents would feel less than human is very sad. We should never, we should strive to never let that happen in our communities. And yet it can so easily happen if something as simple as dining is reduced to a task, something that has always been a pleasurable part of our lives.
Yeah, definitely. So even now, this community that I'm helping out, and we're talking about just the menu and the meal. And I was like, well, listen, you've got a gigantic grill outside. Why can't we just grill the chicken? Why can't you grill the burgers? Throw it on the grill. What a flavor profile change. Okay. And then maybe we just put something different on the we use the liner, a red check liner, or we get a red check paper napkin. Big deal, right? The cost is so minimal to what you're going to gain from that. And you can have an indoor barbecue, but you're not going to forget that char flavor. You're not going to forget the smell. You're not going to forget when you get a piece of corn that's been cooked on the grill and you make it Mexican corn with the queso and the mayonnaise and all this other stuff. Those are the things that you can do that are just so simple, but we have to get out of our own way sometimes. And remember, we're just not here to do a chore. We're here to really elevate the experience for someone. And it's always that, well, what if that was your mom or your dad or your grandfather or your grandparent? I hate to throw that in somebody's face, but sometimes you've got to pull on those strings to get people to take that extra effort. And I'll be honest with you, the staff, I have yet, and I hope I don't go down in flames on this one, but let me tell you, the frontline staff are always engaged, always. They know the residents. They come in, they do the work, they stay late, they get it done. And it's management, not everybody, okay? Not everybody, but sometimes you just can't come in and just do the routine. You've really got to make a little bit of an extra effort. And it's really not that big of an effort, but that's why you're in leadership. That's why you're a manager. That's why you get paid more, is to really think out of the box, work with your peers, nursing, maintenance, housekeeping, and work with them, and as a team, come up with something to elevate the experience for the resident, because that is a team effort. We need maintenance to get the fuel and to clean the grill, and we need housekeeping to help us move tables around, and we need nursing to be on board because we've got a special meal and we want them to hand out an extra, popsicle or something like that. It's a team effort. It'll lift everybody's spirits up. It's worth it. So take the time to do the thing. I know the staff wants to do it. Yeah. I know they love the residents.
And you make it fun and you make it engaging, and the staff participates in the dining. Yeah. The thing I found in your book too, Toni, is so much of it is so common sense. I'm still thinking back on that whole thing of the centerpieces, and provide the stimulation. I don't have to make a centerpiece every week for you. I rotate it. Well, what a cool idea that is. Who would have thought? And so that common sense, and I will tell you another piece of common sense advice that I learned early in my culture change journey was from an incredible dietitian named Linda Bump. And Linda works with Action Pact, and she wrote a book called Life Happens in the Kitchen. And one of the things she talks about is, we talk about, well, the residents love the annual barbecue, and the residents love when we do the special dinner, and they love this. And her response is, then do it more often. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have all these zillion different ideas, and you mentioned barbecue. For most of us, when the summer months come, we're not content to grill once a month. Mm-hmm. We're not even content to grill once a week. We're constantly looking for the good weather. And if the weather's nice, you fire up the grill. Mm-hmm. For some people, some people don't even stop in the wintertime. So why would we not just, you don't have to have new ideas all the time. Take those good ideas, take those things people love and run with them and do them more often, Such a brilliant idea, yet so simple. Yeah. And, have residents bring in their recipes. How much joy, how much pride is there to say, today we're eating Kathy's famous bread pudding for dessert tonight. That, how cool is that for Kathy to be able to say, woohoo, this is mine.
Yeah. And you can do that now. So a cook, chef, manager, whatever, and Kathy, they go to the dining room. You have all the ingredients. She helps to mix it together. It's still Kathy's bread pudding. Yeah. We didn't have to have a whole army of people all stick their hands in it. I mean, it could just be that simple. Yeah. So really, get out of your own way. Just get out of your own way, and you'll be all right.
And I think I know we have a dietitian here with us, and I know sometimes I will tell you, I was in a community one time that there was urban legends get started, and I got a call from one of the clinical staff that said, we have a gentleman who really wants peanut butter. We can't give it to him because the dietitian said no one in this community can have peanut butter. She sent out a memo. And I'm going, really? So I contacted the dietitian, and yes, there had been a memo that had been sent out. She resurrected the original memo, and there was a resident who had a choking issue, and so there was caution that was sent out in this memo about the serving peanut butter to anybody and everybody, and as you said, Toni, the monitoring and being what's going on. But the memo never did say no one can have peanut butter, but the urban legend became that no one could have peanut butter. And it lived, amazingly enough, for several years before the legend got debunked. And I fear that those type of urban legends exist in way too many of our communities, many times because of a plan of correction or something happened when a surveyor was in our building, and we just went wild. And then I felt bad because our poor dietitian, and Joanne is a wonderful lady. I still know Joanne. And she never said that, but boy, she did get that. She got a hit for it. But we just have to work together and talk to each other and, problem solve a little bit.
Right. Exactly. I was fortunate. We were at a community and they served turkey bacon, turkey sausage, which is PS, not a whole lot of people are fans of that. So they asked the dietitian, well, we only have it on once a week. Can we do the pork bacon? She's like, yeah, sure. I was like, wait a minute. I mean, that goes along that same urban legend, legend. Like, wait a minute. All we had to do was ask.
Yeah.
And it was okay. So you just can't accept the norm, because since there is a lot of turnover, okay, there's change in leadership, there's change in management, but the game remains the same. And what happens, someone comes in and they say, well, at my other place, we did it like this. So from this point forward, we shall do it this way. And then they end up vacating, and then someone else comes in and it's okay, where I worked before. And then that's how it just sort of like continues to snowball. And I just challenge anyone that is new in a leadership role at a community, whatever type of senior living community, is that you just kind of like take a step back before you start instituting all of these changes and all these rules, and then look at some of the rules. You know, you have to talk to your staff, find out what's going on, and then do a little bit of research before you start making all of these changes, because the staff has been through so many changes already. And here's another one, and the eyes are going to roll like, oh God, here comes the next one. You don't want that. That's a terrible way to start off, but just be thoughtful in your approach about what you're doing and how you're changing the program. But the end in mind is always to elevate whatever the end result is to the resident, and we can do it. And you can don't ever tell me it's a question about money, because you can find, I'm sure there's waste somewhere, and you can find it. And what we were wasting on that, because no one ever ate it, so let's stop sending it, then that money can be put forward to something else. If we have a budget and I'm allowed $100, I'm going to spend $99.99, believe me, because you always want to make your budget. You don't want to go underneath, because they're going to take it away next year. But, you know, be smart about how you're spending your money and use whatever extra you have to elevate the program. And it can be done.
Yeah, I think, you know, as we've worked with more and more neighborhoods and households, people have gotten more creative and more flexible in how they have been able to kind of customize. And I've had the privilege of working with some wonderful dietitians who have really helped us with the menu and finding ways to have a core to that menu, but that then supported, you know, this household, they like their, you know, we're going to have chicken breasts tonight, but this household likes theirs with a little lemon pepper and, you know, whatever on it. And this household likes theirs barbecued. And this was to be able to bring the personality of the residents in their own home to our menus. Or this household has a lot of people who they just need the finger food. So we're going to take that same chicken and we're going to cut it up in a way that it can be picked up. And, right. You know, so I think we're getting smarter about some of those things. I think it starts, Toni, I think you hit on the key to so much of it. It starts with a conversation. It starts with talking to each other. I mean, first, maybe it starts with knowing the resident and what they want, but then talk to each other. Because we got a lot of smart people out there. We can figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You have to look at the regional and the cultural diversity of the communities. So like you said, in the neighborhood, if they're preparing their own food, and it's a question of we're sending over either par-cooked chicken or raw chicken for them to cook in their ovens, then as long as we're in compliance with the nutritionals, then really who cares? Okay, we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to have someone make sure that it's appropriate and let them do whatever they need to do to feed the residents. It's not, who are we to say, no, you can't have chicken every day. Who are we to say? If that's what they want and they're eating it and they're happy, hey, more power to them. It's not about what I want. It's about what they're going to eat and enjoy. And I think that goes with anything.
Yeah. Just get me some good old comfort food.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're not quite at an hour, but I think that's okay. I think it's been a great conversation. Toni, I've enjoyed bantering with you. I know we've had some folks listening in, and we will share this recording with those people who had things come up today that just kept them from being here with us, but we'll make sure they have the recording. So in our own way, we can bring them along with this conversation. So Toni, again, thank you so much for sharing with us. We look forward to this being the first of many opportunities to share together with Pioneer Network.
And I've been listening, as you know, and not really saying anything, Toni and Joan, and you both have been great. It's really been a great discussion. So I'm really glad we're recording this so that other people can see it as well. So thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, and anybody can certainly reach out anytime. I'm always open for a conversation.
Okay.
So, all right.
Sounds
Until
great.
Next time.
I'm going to everyone have a wonderful day, and we will see you. We actually will be launching our next Listen, Learn, Explore this afternoon, and it's on life enrichment, and it's with Dawn Worsley, who is a life enrichment professional. We've got a couple others in the queue that I think you'll really enjoy. So take a look on Pioneer Network's website and see what's coming, and plan on joining us again. So thank you all, and have a wonderful day.
Right.
Bye.
Take care.